A group of thugs dragged the girl into a dark alley. Her clothes were pretty shabby. She lay on the ground and there was a frightening emptiness in her eyes. She seemed to have already resigned herself to her fate, expecting the worst outcome that evening. And I just stood to the side, sipping a beer, watching all this from the outside. I remembered how 5 years ago, I tried to woo a local beauty. And then suddenly, I received a message in which she agreed to my courtship. But as soon as we arrived at the karaoke, everything went wrong. The guy then claimed he was participating in some kind of large-scale role-playing game and simply laughed at me. So today I came to the side of the road alone to have a couple of bottles out of boredom. And this had to happen to see how these idiots locked the girl in an alley. She cried and begged them to let her go, but it was no use. For these bastards, she was just another easy prey. At first, I didn't plan to interfere, deciding not to meddle in other people's affairs. But when I saw that these scumbags were ready to cross the line, I couldn't take it anymore. Involuntarily cursing, I realized that these creatures were worse than any wild animal. I smashed the empty bottle on the ground and, grabbing the rose, rushed towards one of the attackers. With a sharp kick, I sent the first of them flying, throwing him 2.5 meters away. I hit the second one on the head with the remains of the bottle, hitting him hard. Finally, I threw the shards aside, grabbed the girl by the hand and dragged her away towards the more crowded streets. We ran for a long time until we found ourselves in a quiet alley. I kept looking back, checking for a tail, and only then did I notice that she was still clutching my hand. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to make my voice as stern as possible. Only now did I get a good look at her face, and it's no wonder those idiots couldn't pass her by. She was a true beauty, incredibly attractive. "I'm fine, thank you," the girl answered quietly, trying to even out her breathing. I continued to stare at her, and she, noticing my gaze, became embarrassed and took a step to the side. Hey, easy there, I was just making sure you were okay," I chuckled. For a hot-tempered guy who just got into a fight, this is pretty normal behavior, right? "Go home quickly, it's dangerous outside at night," I added. I pulled a crumpled bundle of money out of my pocket, thrust it into her hand, and told her to find a taxi. After that, I was about to leave, but I felt someone pulling me by the jacket. Turning around, I saw that my clothes were caught. It was she, the girl who had just asked for help. Her gaze mingled caution and silent despair. "Would you mind walking me to my car? I'm afraid to stay here alone," she asked quietly. "Could you lend me 10,000 yuan? I promise I'll pay it back soon," she added with a very serious expression. 10,000 yuan, did I hear that right? Borrowing such a sum from a stranger you meet for the first time is, to put it mildly, strange. I took a closer look at her. Maybe she ran away from home. She has 2 aristocratic features for someone who hangs out by the river in the evenings. "Did you have a fight with your parents?" I asked directly. She remained silent, only nodding slightly. "Listen, I get it," I sighed. "Quarrels with your ancestors are normal, I've been there myself. But you're so fragile, they're probably going crazy with worry. Come back before it's too late." I tried to convince her, promising that everything would work out if she just asked for forgiveness. "I'm not coming back, I don't want to marry someone I've never even seen," she snapped, and that sentence contained the whole answer. We looked into each other's eyes. You can hide your appearance, pretend to be anyone, but the eyes never lie. Yes, she is clearly no more than 20 years old. She's still just a girl, and they're already trying to force her into marriage. Businessmen often use their children as pawns in deals to expand their influence and strengthen their capital. In recent times, the rules for such arranged marriages have only become stricter. I sighed heavily. "And what are you going to do? I don't have enough money to support you." I pulled my smartphone out of my pocket to distract myself. She was so agitated that she could barely manage simple movements. The girl looked infinitely sad. She nervously touched up her lips with powder, puffing out her cheeks as if trying to hide from her thoughts behind this simple mask. Suddenly, a timid smile lit up her face. She'd made her decision. Looking up at me, she quietly asked, "Can I stay here for a while? I don't want to spend it for free. I'll pay the rent." "No," I blurted out, without even having time to really think about her proposal. My one-room apartment was too modest, a single bed and a sofa in the living room. If she stayed, she'd have to sleep in the common room. She looked so miserable that my heart sank. She didn't ask for pity, she simply lowered her head in humility. Something had to be done. I turned and headed toward the house, but after taking a few steps, I involuntarily stopped. At that moment, her pale face seemed to brighten slightly, as if a glimmer of hope had appeared. I continued walking without looking back until I finally disappeared around the corner of the street, and she remained standing in silence. After all, we're complete strangers. Why should I trust her? She was crouched outside the closed store, huddled in a ball, her slender arms wrapped around her shoulders, and I noticed her figure trembling slightly. She didn't complain, didn't cry, she simply endured the cold stoically. I couldn't take it anymore and, returning, approached her. When my boots appeared before her eyes, she flinched and looked up, already preparing for the worst. Her face lit up for a moment, but she immediately tried to hide her emotions. "I only have one bed at home. I'll sleep on the floor and you lie down on the bed," I suggested. "No, the floor is too hard, then I'd better leave," she protested. "Okay," I gave in, "then I'll lie on the floor and the bed is yours." It was decided. I took her home. My head was in chaos. I didn't know how to move on, and now I had this responsibility. But leaving her on the street would mean putting her in danger. Who knew what kind of people she might encounter again? On the way, I learned that her name was Suyu, a beautiful name. We arrived home. I turned on the light and suggested that Suyu take a bath first to warm up. "Thank you," she whispered, still shaking slightly from the cold and the stress she'd experienced. Suyu froze in amazement as she entered the bathroom. For her, accustomed to different surroundings, this small room seemed strange. She hesitated before entering. There were only a couple of bottles of shampoo and shower gel on the shelf. Looking around, I realized her bathroom was probably larger than my entire apartment. My bathroom didn't have dozens of expensive personal care products. I heard girls at university laughing that guys only needed shampoo. It seems they were right. "How do I use the heater?" she asked. "I'll do it," I replied. I pointed to the tap with red and blue marks. "Everything is simple here, hot and cold water." I turned the lever and heard the pleasant sound of pouring water. "Well, I told you it was simple," I thought to myself. "But it's strange, why does the water flow from below and not from the shower?" I noticed a small oval button below the faucet that could be pulled up, and pulled her. The shower suddenly sprayed a powerful stream of hot water directly onto Suyu, soaking her already damp clothes. "What happened?" I heard a scream and rushed to the door. "Everything's fine, the water was just too hot," came from inside. I looked, the thermostat read 42 degrees, the perfect temperature. I prepared a clean towel and blanket for her to cover herself with. My bed was at her disposal. 10 minutes passed and she still didn't come out. I began to regret my haste with the proposal. I would have had time to take a shower myself by now. Finally, the door opened slightly. I stood nearby, preparing to follow. Her wet hair, dripping with water, appeared from the doorway, and a cloud of warm steam was escaping from the bathroom. Suyu blushed when she saw me and asked shyly, "Lucia, my clothes are soaking wet. Do you have anything dry?" "Sure." I ran upstairs and found my old black t-shirt. Suyu looked at the item with doubt, but having no choice, she accepted it. Soon the door opened again and she came out wrapped in my skullprint t-shirt. She didn't put on pants because they were too big. Barefoot, the petite Suyu looked rather fragile in my long t-shirt. My clothes barely reached her mid-thigh. "It's your turn, go wash yourself," she said, her face flushing again. Her words somehow sent a jolt through me. I just nodded and disappeared behind the bathroom door. 3 minutes later, I emerged feeling refreshed. The living room smelled of shampoo. Suyu was sitting on the bed, trying to dry her hair with a towel. "You took so long to wash yourself and I barely felt a thing," I chuckled, trying to hide my embarrassment. I felt out of place in her presence. It was like a scene from an anime, a beautiful girl in my apartment. Everything was so surreal. "Go to bed, we'll decide what to do next tomorrow," I said. We both lay down, trying to sleep, listening to each other's breathing in the silence of the room. "This night has been hard. I feel fatigue gripping not only my muscles, but my very soul." Suyu finished drying her hair and wrapped herself in a towel. Time was running out and this whole situation seemed absurd. I still couldn't believe a stranger had moved into my apartment. Sleep is gradually taking over her consciousness. "Suyu, you're clearly at your limit." Her gaze slowly loses focus, darting off into the distance. One morning I woke up, tossing and turning lazily in bed. Half asleep, I went downstairs and saw a girl sleeping in the living room. So last night wasn't a dream. She hadn't woken up yet, perhaps because of the stuffiness. Half the blanket was bunched up and her legs were folded into a strange position, reminiscent of the number 7, a most unusual sight. I went over and covered her with a blanket. It didn't matter whether she was hot or not, but if she caught a cold, there would be no end to the problems. After washing up, I left 200 yuan on the table and a note asking her to leave early, emphasizing that the money wasn't to be returned. Leaving the house, I hopped on my white scooter and headed to work. My destination was Xinhe, a new tea shop. I'm not just an employee here, I'm the boss. I opened this business for two reasons. First, Jiang Wang works at the tech company across the street, and second, he loves trying new milk teas. Even the names on the menu are largely inspired by him. But now it seems I'm a hostage to my own plans. As soon as I arrived, the staff complained. Jiang Wang's colleagues had come in the morning and taken tea for free, claiming he'd given them permission to do so. Waiting for me inside was Tong Yu, my junior colleague in a black and white uniform. She's struggling at home, so she works for me in her spare time. We also have Shijiang, a country girl, straightforward and very efficient. Shijiang has been working with me since the opening for 2 years now. She wiped the table indignantly. Boss, I don't mind Jiang Wang drinking tea, but bringing colleagues here to drink for free is a bit much. Tong Yu nodded, agreeing. Everyone at the office knows I care about Jiang Wan and opened this shop for him, but his cold attitude toward me leaves them genuinely perplexed as to why I tolerate it. I'd been harboring resentment for a while. I said, "You're right. From today on, no free treats. Everything is strictly by the receipt." Of course, this was just an attempt to settle down, not a lack of affection. "Boss, are you serious?" they asked. They'd been hesitant to speak to me directly before, seeing how obsessed I was with Jiang Wan, but now they seemed to sense a change. I was stupid before, but now I've seen the light. Why bang my head against the wall when there are so many other options out there? I decided to let it go, even allowing myself a joking tone. Shijiang suddenly became serious. "Boss, if you're really determined to find a partner, I can introduce you to my sister. She's 18 and looks great. She grew up in the mountains and knows the value of hard work," Shijiang added. "I've known you for 2 years. You won't be a bad person. This is a good option for her." "Don't joke, go to work," I waved it off. After tidying up, I realized the fruit was running low, so I had to head to the wholesale market. By noon, all the work in the store was completed. Being the boss is a nice perk. You can leave whenever you want. On the way home, I stopped by the market for some spicy pork and hot pot ingredients. I decided I'd have a proper dinner tonight. I ran into my neighbor Zhang Xiaobai at the door. He beamed happily when he saw the bags of food. I knew that guy. He's probably been ordering food from outside again. We're neighbors, but we rarely talk. When Xiaobai saw me, he was taken aback. "Oh, you're back. I thought you weren't home." "What do you mean? Why was the TV on?" I asked, surprised. Xiaobai reminded me that he'd known me for a year and had never seen me bring anyone over. He clearly suspected something was wrong, thinking I'd escaped or was hiding. I opened the door and peered into the hallway. Su Yuyu's head peeked out from behind the door, startled. "You're still here, you're so impudent," I snapped at her. Zhang Xiaobai craned his neck. "Look at Su Yuyu, wow, she's really cute." "I can't believe it. I'm usually honest, and yet here I have this guest hiding in my golden house. Do I really look like someone capable of such meanness?" Su Yuyu, noticing her curious neighbor, flinched in fear. I went inside and slammed the door, cutting us off from prying eyes. Xiaobai remained standing in the correctional room, and it was clear from his face how much he envied me. I put the bags on the table. The TV was still on in the living room, and empty snack containers and those same 200 yuan lay on the table. Su Yuyu looked at the floor, clearly about to ask something, but I beat her to it. "Let's be honest, you're not going to go home," she shook her head. "Then you can't just live here." "We met by chance," I continued, trying to look stern. "I'm a man, you're a girl. After all, I can do whatever I want." She replied timidly, "You won't do that. You're a good person. You think I'm good because I saved you? You're wrong. You should be wary of me. Why didn't you leave last night?" She was silent, but I guessed what was on her mind. If I tried to do something, she would defend herself to the end. Su Yuyu mentioned that she practiced taekwondo. What a twist. Hearing this, I couldn't help but grin. "Should I call the police?" I asked, but the phone, which was lying in the locker room, was hopelessly damaged by the rain. "No, please don't," she begged. "If you call my parents, they'll find me right away and marry me off to an old man." She looked so pitiful and scared that I involuntarily lowered my tone. I put my phone down. "Okay, how long are you planning on staying here?" It turned out her phone wasn't working either. "A week," she offered. "After a week, I'll leave and give you all the money back." "Okay, but first show me your ID." I compromised. I felt genuine pity for this girl, in the prime of her life, and they wanted to sacrifice her to a marriage contract with some old man. Su Yuyu handed me the document. It was the only thing she had left. I checked the data. The name matched. Year of birth was 2005. Today is October 2023, which means she's barely 18. Her parents are really in a hurry to get rid of her. My first concern was whether she was of legal age. If she wasn't, there would be huge legal problems. I took a piece of paper and wrote out an agreement. I decided to back myself up with a contract like in the movies to avoid any misunderstandings later. You owe me $2,000 a month for rent. You sleep on the floor, I'll sleep on the bed. If you live there for a week, you'll pay for water and electricity. That's 500 yuan. You can pay extra. No problem, Su Yu nodded, though her face remained gloomy. This whole thing feels oddly reminiscent of some anime series. There's no point in analyzing our past bitter experiences and looking for the catch now. We just need to take care of each other. Maybe then we'll really be able to get along, and over time, something real will develop between us. Hey, what am I even thinking? She's a normal girl, and despite finding herself in a difficult situation, she's trying to be polite. She's even keeping me from sleeping well with her worries. In my dreams, I searched for a prince, gentle, attentive, someone who would protect me from any adversity. But reality is much more prosaic, and I have to cope on my own. As for her, she's clearly not the type to rely on others. In the quiet of the apartment, Su Yuyu's stomach growled treacherously. Despite the abundance of snacks in the living room, there was no proper meal and she was clearly hungry. I felt hungry myself. I noticed her glance at my stomach, then silently stood up and headed towards the kitchen. I brought groceries, but cooking fast food or ordering takeout was a bad idea. What if she gets a stomach ache? Then we'd have to pay for the hospital. No, it was better to cook something proper myself. Less than half an hour later, 4 dishes were steaming on the table. Spicy pork, fried vegetables, tomatoes, and fried eggs. Lucia, this is amazing. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. How did you know I love it? Su Yu's eyes lit up. She hadn't eaten all day, and the aroma of the food clearly delighted her. I placed a bowl of rice in front of her. Eat, I said, trying to be polite. You're welcome. Su Yu couldn't hold back any longer. She began eating, and after the first bite, a genuine, satisfied smile lit up her face. Looking at her sweet face, I couldn't help but smile back. This scene, so cozy, almost familial. I once dreamed of something similar with Jiangwan, but alas, that dream remained elusive. 10 minutes later, she finished her 3rd serving of rice, leaned back in her chair blissfully, and stroked her stomach. Lucia, your fried eggs with tomatoes are the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. I chuckled. That's only because you were terribly hungry. On an empty stomach, even bread seems like a delicacy. She wanted to answer, but suddenly hesitated. It seemed she was embarrassed by her own feelings. At that moment, the atmosphere became strange. When she tried to say something, it sounded awkward, almost like an attempt at a kiss. Su Yu immediately stopped herself, and a tension hung in the air, making my throat go dry. She looked like she was about to collapse, her face flushed bright red. I just stood there in shock, hoping she didn't think I'd provoked it somehow. To defuse the situation, I rushed to the kitchen, taking a deep breath. Su Yu remained seated on the sofa. Since her legs were too short for the chair, she took off her slippers and tucked her feet under her, barefoot. I felt her gaze on my back as I washed the dishes. She was probably wondering if it was intentional or an accident. Apparently, she's still trying to process what happened and wants to check her phone to distract herself, but it's broken. I remembered her story. She came to this city to find her grandmother, who had become ill, but lost her phone and suitcase while she was running errands. If it weren't for that chance meeting, she wouldn't have ended up on the street, and then under my suspicious gaze in the apartment. Su Yu looked at the TV, which was showing some show about the rich life, and seemed to have calmed down a little, forgetting about the awkwardness from earlier. She was bored without her phone, just watching TV. I came closer, and she suddenly flinched, as if frightened there had been a complete misunderstanding. She looked confused, her clothes were all over the place, and she quickly straightened her coat, trying to hide her awkwardness. She tried to wash some clothes while I was at the store, but not knowing how a washing machine worked, she fiddled with it by hand. The clothes ended up not drying, so she had to hang them out on the balcony. And then it started raining, which she didn't notice while watching anime. The result, wet clothes and a complete fiasco. We looked at each other in silence. Listen, I said, stay home, I'll be out for a bit. She immediately jumped up. Don't watch TV, I'm coming too, I want to fix my phone. What are you going to do? You don't have any money, I reminded her. You're rich, right? Lend me some, she retorted. I decided not to argue, it was just a good deed after all. Although, catching myself thinking about how she was dressed, I quickly looked away. She noticed my gaze and blushed as red as an apple. "Come out, I'll change right now," she said. "You wouldn't go outside in wet clothes, would you? It would be obvious they were stuck to your body," I remarked. She froze, not understanding what I meant. Su Yuyu is sometimes completely unaware of how she appears to others. "Open your mouth, I have another set," I offered, pulling out the box. "You can put mine on." "No," she snapped immediately. "Wearing my clothes is beyond the pale. Personal things are too intimate. Isn't that direct contact? No way." "I'm serious," I added. "These are new. I haven't even opened them. They're clean." "It doesn't matter," she cried. "No means no." I sighed and simply placed the new package on the table. "If you don't want it, don't take it. But walking around in a wet one is stupid." Su Yuyu was on the verge of exploding, her legs twitching nervously. She grabbed the package, clearly irritated by the situation. She seemed angry with me for this suggestion, although I just wanted to help. "Do you think I want you to leave?" I asked. "You're not going anywhere anyway." Grabbing her things, she ran into the bathroom, not daring to look at me. After a while, I heard the rustling of the packaging, and then she came out. Of course, they were men's boxer shorts, and they looked strange on her, but she had no choice. Finally, Su Yuyu put on my size 45 sneakers and we went outside. Her boots were still wet, so her path lay to the nearest night market. The first thing we did was go to the repair shop where the technician delivered his verdict. The motherboard was burnt out, repairs would cost a pretty penny, it would be easier to buy a new one. I had had the phone for many years, so repairing the motherboard really didn't make sense. In the end, I went to the nearest mobile phone store and bought myself a new smartphone for almost 3,000 yuan. Su Yuyu also wanted a new phone. For her, it was a matter of security and at least some independence. But I turned her down. I just spent 3,000 on mine and my budget was tight. I felt sorry for her, but I didn't have any extra money. We were neither relatives nor friends. "Lucia, please buy me one," she kept insisting, but I remained adamant. When persuasion didn't help, Su Yuyu went for the heavy artillery, looking at me with huge pleading eyes. The saleswoman, seeing our confusion, decided to intervene. "We're having a special offer. Buy one phone and get a huge discount or bonus on the second one. Maybe you'd like to take it?" She pulled a budget buy smartphone from the display case. All the basic features were there and it worked smoothly. It was simply beautiful. At that moment, a respectable man carrying a leather bag entered the store. He placed 500 yuan bills on the counter and said in an authoritative tone, "Give me the phone number for this lovely lady." Su Yuyu immediately snapped, "Thank you, I don't need it." I was surprised. I was even more surprised by her reaction to the stranger. 500 yuan is a pittance for me. If I need anything else, I can buy it," the man persisted. He adjusted the expensive watch on his wrist and looked at her with some strange interest. This scene made me feel extremely awkward. He smiled coldly, left 500 yuan on the table, and stayed there for a long time, watching us. This uncle looked suspicious, and his persistence was clearly caused by Su Yu's simplicity and purity. But it didn't bother me, I just chuckled. "Listen, there's a guy who's willing to give you a phone for free. Why are you turning him down?" Su Yuyu thought for a moment, then said quietly, "In this city, I only trust you." These words worked like a spell. I couldn't have imagined that I could earn such trust in just one day. "Don't you love yourself?" I asked. "At your age, it's so easy to fall in love with anyone just so long as someone shows you kindness. Why do you trust me? Just because you think I'm a good person?" This was the third time I'd received this good guy card from her. I realized there was no point in arguing. After all, I just bought this budget phone and paid for it. Now I was sure that I had made the right choice. There was no way to convince her anyway. The saleswoman, looking at us, simply smiled and helped us complete the purchase. 3,000 yuan was a considerable sum, but for her, it was a chance to connect with the world. I looked at her and said, "Choose the case you like." "I'll give you the money later, honestly," she said, nodding happily. She ultimately chose a pink case with a picture on it. Upon receiving the phone, she immediately began downloading apps with gusto. "I'll definitely repay the debt," she promised. I just nodded silently, not showing it. But suddenly her joy turned to panic. After checking her balance in one of the apps, she realized there was no money in her account. I looked around and seemed to immediately understand what was going on. She'd saved this pocket money for 10 years and now it was gone. Su Yuyu was close to tears. How was she going to pay the rent? How was she going to live without any income? Going back to that blind date was out of the question. We began to reconstruct the chain of events. It turned out that she met some old lady whom she helped with the phone and she deceived her. It's the 21st century and she believed in such a primitive scam. I didn't know whether to be angry or surprised by her naivety. The worst part is her password was 123,456. Even a child could figure it out. If the fraudster had not yet transferred the money, you could have tried to contact the police. I hesitated whether to call the authorities. It was the only chance to get the money back. No, if I call, my parents will find me right away. She literally trembled with fear. I looked away. Looking at her sad face was beyond my strength. Okay, forget about the money, I sighed. Just pay it back when you can. It was amazing how such a perfect family could raise such a trusting daughter. But despite everything, we got along well. Su Yuyu is a simple 18-year-old girl, albeit with her own vigilance. If you've been tricked, consider it the price you pay for the lesson, I told her. Thank you, Luzia, you're the best. This was already the third card today. We headed towards the clothing stalls, and for Su Yuyu, it was a real discovery. We went into one of the shops. Choose what you need, I've agreed on the price. She was delighted. She hadn't even expected to find such beautiful things here at the night market. We agreed on 200 yuan for 3 sets of clothes, and the seller also threw in a pair of socks as a gift. An hour later, we were walking back, laden with bags. It seemed her new life required far more things than I could have imagined. Walking past the grocery store, she suddenly wanted to buy a notebook. Why do you need one? I asked. I'll keep track of all my expenses, everything I owe you. As soon as I have the money, I'll pay you back, she replied seriously. I just chuckled. Choose if you want. I didn't care, but her seriousness made me soften for a moment. Su Yuyu smiled happily and practically fluttered into the store. It was too much, but she chose a pink notebook. We returned to the apartment when it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. We ran into Zhang Xiaobai at the entrance. He just returned from outside, looking excited. Guys, I had a barbecue here. You can't imagine how awesome it turned out. He was so excited that he was going to go home and brag about his culinary exploits. But seeing us together, he fell silent. I saw his gaze change. At that moment, I seemed to hit him with my calm. Xiaobai was clearly at a loss. As a fan of all sorts of stories, he was crushed that such a sweet girl preferred my company. For him, it was almost a personal tragedy. The inspiration that had struck me in the living room only grew stronger, and Xiaobai, dying of envy, was left behind. We entered the apartment, and the door closed tightly behind us. Who's showering first? I asked, laying out the groceries on the table. Su Yuyu hesitated. I did first, and what about you? I promised that I would wait until you repaid the debt, I teased her. There's no room left in my life for those old feelings. What I once felt has long since evaporated, like morning fog. This Xiaobai guy was a master at creating his own imaginary worlds, but I wasn't going to play by his rules. I just wanted to take a peaceful shower. I grabbed a change of clothes and headed to the bathroom. Su Yuyu seemed to have imagined something, but it was just her imagination. She was wrong about what I was thinking. Who allowed her to stare at my legs so intently all the time? Don't think I didn't notice. When she finished washing, she put her things down, and I couldn't help but notice her haste and anxiety. The clothes we bought hadn't been washed yet, and the old ones were unpleasant to wear. Are you really going to wear these? You'll sweat, I remarked. I left a change of clothes by the door. From above, I heard her coming out of the bathroom. A light flickered in the doorway. I noticed her phone left on the dresser. Deciding to check my notifications, I picked it up. The interface was familiar. I opened the Messenger app with green icons. Messages were coming one after another, and Jiang Wan's name was at the top. Luzia, what are you doing? I came to your place for tea, and you made my friends pay, the message read. I shuddered at his arrogance. Tomorrow morning, bring 20 cups of the most expensive fruit tea to our department, he demanded. Apologize to everyone, otherwise I'll never talk to you again, he added at the end. I couldn't help but laugh, not at him but at myself. In his eyes, I was nothing. He demanded an apology without once considering what I was going through. 20 cups for 400, let him dream. The most I can do is give a discount, but not free. Without the rose-colored glasses I wore before, Jiang Wan simply looked like a man with an inflated ego. I spent 5 years trying to win his favor, and now he demands I apologize to my colleagues. It was so ridiculous that I started to type a reply, but changed my mind. I noticed that the interface title had changed. He was clearly waiting for an answer, afraid to miss the moment. I simply cleared the message cache and closed the app. I was bored. I launched the game I'd spent so much time playing in my tea shop. Ding ding, game notifications. My gaming friends have finally waited for me to come online. Brother Feng, finally, come on, we're in the golden trio, just right for you. The dorm was noisy and they were inviting me to play. Sorry, Brother Feng, it's been a while since I've had your tea, they joked in the voice chat. Well, if they're calling, why not? The enemy's speed was high, but they had no chance against my techniques. Brother Feng, you're in great shape, you already have 2,000 points, come on, show off your skills. In the game, as in life, everything depended on how you distributed your resources and monitored the situation. I was completely immersed in the process. After the enemy had betrayed me 3 times, I finally secured a foothold at my tower. Avenged the murder, Brother Feng, are you still such a master? They asked in surprise. Mistakes were minimal, I'd gotten used to this role. Thanks to the kill rewards, my in-game economy finally started to grow. I returned to the line, trying to make the most of every moment. The game mechanics demanded precision, and I acted decisively. The broadcast chat started to get lively as players discussed my style. And I continued to play, enjoying the fact that in this virtual world I was ahead above all these Jiangwans. The opponent decided to take a desperate step, attempting to catch me off guard, but my character was prepared. The golden shield saved me from certain death. I, the flower god, smiled slightly, sitting up straighter in my chair. I will now prepare a series of precise strikes to completely destroy his hopes of victory. Imagine I unleash a series of strikes. The opponent falls in an instant, pure swordsmanship from Hua Mulan. We had no chance of a fair fight with that coward on the other side of the screen. He was constantly trying to escape. Rumors began to circulate in the livestream chat. Thousands of viewers watched as the opponent thrashed about, trying to escape the inevitable. As soon as he made a mistake, I unleashed a lightning-fast combination of punches. That was the end. His health was fading before my eyes. He tried to use the flash to escape, but I could already see his next move. I taught him, and now I used it against him. Reaction in such situations is everything. I switch to my heavy sword to pin him to the ground as soon as he tries to snap back. And then an abrupt transition to the speed of a light sword. Silent, quick, and without a chance. Compared to my skills, it was too easy. The next second, I calculated his trajectory. He was trying to deceive me, but it was just a trap he'd fallen into. Hua Mulan tried to escape, but it was too late. One more decisive blow, and it's all over. The flower god was clearly furious in the broadcast chat. My teammates were jubilant. Actually, Luna was also there, and she was extremely confused by my actions. Judging by her playing style, they clearly haven't trained with real pros. The enemy was Liu Yue, the one who tried to engage in matchmaking and intrigue. I didn't expect to meet her here. She started getting harshly criticized in the chat, and apparently someone in the audience recognized her game ID. Killing Liu Yue in the game was like slapping reality in the face. She was a terrible tactician. Despite her mistakes, she was clearly trying to play better, but I was one step ahead. What did this mistake mean? A complete collapse of her strategy. Amid the hum of comments in the studio, I continued playing, ignoring their indignation. Suddenly, a window popped up on the phone screen. A message from Jiangwan. Who are you, Lu Xia? Pian Qi, I chuckled. Jiangwan couldn't believe I was the one who wrote that message. She thought I was blocked or offline. I'm Lu Xia, I replied curtly. You dare deceive me, who are you really? She still doubted my identity. Before, I would have responded meekly and started making excuses. Now, I simply went to her page and clicked blacklist. Everything flows, everything changes. My world no longer revolved around her. My gaming friends wrote, Lu Ji, you've completely crossed him out this time, haven't you? Yes, we'll have a lot of other things to do in the future. He'll have to wait a long time before I pay attention to him again, I replied. Okay, next time we'll play together. By the way, add me to your contacts. I gave them my ID. This game we were playing now seemed much more interesting to me than all my previous meaningless relationships. Brother Lu, you haven't interacted with that king for the past 2 years, right? The boys asked. Something like that. I'll tell you how it works when we meet, I replied. I opened the scanner in the game. Everything was simple and convenient. I remembered that I still don't have her contacts. I logged into the game, found her profile, and quickly copied her messenger details. The enemy's network name was Fangkungsheng. The avatar is a funny panda, similar to the ones I've seen online. After finishing the game, I sent a message. Landed sand. She was online too. The response came almost instantly. Time for bed, Luji. Good night, and dear Yan Wenzi. A good wish, but how difficult it is to pronounce these 2 simple words. Especially when you write this to a person from another company, it's a strange feeling, as if two men were texting each other in the evenings. It was quiet in Jiangwan's house. She typed something for a long time before hitting the send button. When she saw the red exclamation mark, she couldn't believe her eyes. In a panic, she called her best friend, Liu Kaiyan. The conversation took place. She told me everything in detail. Liu Kaiyan had known me for 3 years and was aware of all our affairs. Liu Kaiyan and I communicated often, so he understood my character and habits very well. Wanwen, I've analyzed everything, Liu Kaiyan said. There are only 2 options and both lead to you losing control. Lu Zia did it on purpose, he added. It's his method of psychological defense. He simply decided to cut you out of his life to break through your defenses. There's also a second version. Lu Zia simply lost his phone and whoever found it decided to make fun of you. Jiang Wan leaned toward the second option. He knows you too well, you just don't have the courage to talk to him directly. But if that's the case, how does he know about the most expensive tea in my shop? You're too simple-minded, Liu Kaiyan replied. There are a ton of milk tea shops these days and the prices are all about the same. Indeed, thank you, you are my treasure. You're welcome, and remember, you need to keep your distance and be strict with men, otherwise you'll be the only one who suffers. Ask me if anything happens. Good night, darling. The phone went dead, but Jiang Wan was restless. Tomorrow she decided to come and ask me about everything in person. I had no idea. Su Yuyu was in the living room trying to figure out how to use the washing machine, staring at all those strange buttons. I could feel how nervous she was. Everything in this house was unfamiliar and strange to her. Lu Zia, everything is so complicated here, there's not even voice control. How do I turn it on? Came from the kitchen. Su Yuyu froze, trying to understand the device, looking at the instruments at strange angles as if she was looking for a hidden mechanism. She studied the control panel intently. I remember everything, but where's the button? She muttered, trying to recall my instructions. She blinked, staring at the blank wall where she seemed to see some kind of symbols. Why doesn't the start button work here? She asked, perplexed. What are you doing? The buttons aren't on the wall. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw her pressing the wallpaper. Are you deliberately making fun of me, right? This is all your joke. She was angry, and I was just making fun of her confusion. She looked up at me, and then we looked together at the ill-fated car. There was some kind of commotion at the foot of the bed where she was sitting. Beg me and I'll let you go, I teased her. She just laughed, unsure how to react. Su Yuyu tried to look menacing, but her eyes were filled with annoyance. I accidentally touched her leg, and she flinched. I'm giving you one last chance, let me go, otherwise when I get out I'll give you what I deserve. She tried to put on a brave face. I lightly tickled her leg like in childhood games. It was both fun and a little awkward, but there was no turning back. Lu Zia, you're a real villain. Stop it, I give up, I'll do anything, just stop. Okay, I backed down, but promise me you won't seek revenge. She nodded quickly and we went our separate ways. She almost bit me as she ran down the stairs to hide the embarrassment on her face. Su Yuyu looked disheveled like a peach blossom after a storm, trying to escape from this awkward moment as quickly as possible. No one had ever joked with me like that. Maybe we should have some milk tea another time, I suggested, trying to lighten the mood. She remained silent. Okay, I said, I understand everything, I'll behave more decently. Let's have 2 glasses, I held out 2 fingers. Taro and strawberry pudding, how about that? These were the best sellers in my store. Su Yuyu nodded approvingly. Okay, taro is a great choice. Half the sugar, less ice, deal. No problem, I replied. She smiled faintly, trying to hide her satisfaction when no one was looking. When I returned, I seriously explained to her how the machine worked, hoping that now she could handle it. Just load the laundry, pour in the detergent, and press the button. Got it? I asked. Of course, it's elementary. Go away, I can handle it myself, she confidently set to work. When I returned, she had already opened the lid and found my clothes inside. Stop, you can't wash our clothes together, she said indignantly. What's wrong? You wanted to do the laundry yourself, I asked, surprised. Just one set? I was expecting us to wash everything together so as not to waste water, I explained my savings. Don't worry, I always wash my underwear by hand so as not to ruin it, and I won't throw yours in the machine either, she snapped. What difference does it make? Fine, do as you please. I decided not to argue. I resigned myself to it. After all, it was her choice, and saving pennies on laundry wasn't that important. I left, leaving her to sort out the clothes. there were still some items in the bathroom that needed hand washing. There is even medical advice on this matter, but I didn't bother to lecture. An autumn breeze blew onto the balcony, and my boxers swung menacingly on the rope. Su Yuyu quickly closed her eyes to avoid seeing this, trying to avoid embarrassment. She took a deep breath. The situation was becoming more and more strange, and it was difficult to stay in the apartment. She came across a floral dress and set it aside. This was her private world, her things. Looking at this dress, she suddenly remembered something even more embarrassing and rushed to the bathroom in panic. Where is her underwear? She realized I washed that too. How could she have forgotten? I walked into the bathroom, noticing her confusion, and couldn't help but smile. It seemed she'd had some very interesting dreams last night. After I fell asleep, Su Yuyu quietly took out her pink notebook. "I'll pay you back every penny as soon as I settle the accounts," she wrote. October 12, 2023, second day away from home, staying with Lu Zia extremely reluctantly, but he looked at my legs strangely today. The funniest thing is that she was outraged that I made her sleep on the floor, although she herself admitted that she was quite comfortable in my apartment. The next morning, I headed to my tea house as usual. But today, everything went wrong from the very beginning. My employees, Shu Yao and Shi Jiang, looked extremely determined. Shu Yao graduated from school in 2000, couldn't find a normal job for a long time, and eventually ended up with me. Yesterday, she was delighted that we'd finally started acting tough. Those same friends of Jiang Wan's who were used to freebies clearly weren't expecting a rebuff. "Boss, those colleagues came again and brazenly wanted to take orders without payment. I threw them out. You won't be upset, will you?" she reported. I walked into the store and gave her a thumbs up. She did a great job. Shu Yao stood firm in my interests. She was straightforward and loyal, and I was genuinely glad she didn't let anyone take advantage of us. "Boss, I'm curious, who are you fighting there? Jiang Wan looks like she doesn't care, but I can see how angry she is," she asked. I went into the back room to change and replied, "Forget about her. We only work by the rules now." "Excellent. I'm already tired of watching her take advantage of your kindness," Shu Yao rejoiced. "Watch your tone," I reminded him. "The client is our bread and butter, but only if he pays." "Don't worry, I'll be all smiles while they're getting their wallets out," she laughed. At that moment, a woman in a luxurious dress entered. She looked provocative. "I'll have a super large cup of strawberry mousse and lots of berries." Shu Yao immediately put on a professional smile. "Of course, would you like less sugar and ice as usual?" She clearly knew how to put such guests in their place. The woman glanced impatiently at her watch, her tone haughty, as if she were doing us a favor. When it came to payment, Shu Yao politely but firmly announced the amount. The guest visibly tensed. "Are you new? Do you know who I am? I'm Jiang Wan's best friend. Hurry up, I'm late for work," she shouted. Shu Yao, who had always been smiling, suddenly fell silent and frowned. The rule was simple: everyone pays, and Jiang Wan was no exception. "Whoever you are, the rules are the same for everyone. If you don't like something, call the boss," Shu Yao replied calmly. This woman was Liu Qian, the same friend who always looked down on us. Her behavior was irritating. "I'm here," I said, emerging from the back room. Liu Qian was taken aback, clearly not expecting to see me in the store. She heard our conversation, but I wasn't going to make excuses. This was my space and my rules. I looked at her and said, "Are there any problems? My coworker is right. If you want tea, pay. If not, the door is over there." I politely pointed to the exit. The last 2 days had made me realize there was no point in wasting my nerves on people who didn't appreciate my work. I stopped chasing things I didn't need. It made life easier. "Lu Zia, are you crazy? Believe it or not, I'll tell Jiang Wan what kind of person you are," Liu Qian screamed, losing her temper. "Don't regret it," I snapped. "As long as I'm here, you'll never get anything for free again." She stormed out of the store in a rage. Silence fell over the store. Shu Yao and Shi Jiang looked at me with undisguised admiration. "Boss, that was cool," Shu Yao whispered. "But be careful, people like that don't forgive." "Everything's fine," I smiled. My work spirits were higher than ever. Business at the store improved. We weeded out the elite who considered themselves above the rules, and by lunchtime the flow of people calmed down. Around noon I took out my phone. There were unanswered calls. I was in no hurry to call back. Let them stew in their own juices. My 5 years of loyalty to Jiang Wan had come to an end. Now it was like feeding a dog that didn't wag its tail. The comparison seemed offensive to dogs, who are far more loyal than some people. Jiang Wan sat in the office, unable to concentrate. Everything was going wrong today. She picked up the phone. It was Liu Kaiyan calling. Wanwen, I have an urgent matter. I understand why Lu Zia isn't talking to you, her friend blurted out. She started making up stories about how I allegedly slept with a coworker and painted my defense of the coworkers as an act of incredible bragging. Men are animals, Wanwen, they're all the same. Break up with him before it's too late, she urged. Jiang Wan listened, her anger growing. Did you hear that, Wanwen? You don't need that bastard. Forget his tea, his games, we're your support, Liu Kaiyan continued. It's okay, I'm busy with work, Jiang Wan replied coldly, although inside she was seething. Who does he like then? She asked, but immediately stopped herself. She hung up and tried to get back to work, staring at the computer screen. But my thoughts returned to our conversation. Why did I become like this? She drank coffee. Her intern Song Jiayi sat next to her. Song Jiayi was a newcomer and did not share the general prejudice against me. For him, I was not a scumbag, but a person with a rare talent. He listened to her angry tirades, but inside he was thinking something completely different. She's too biased. Lu Zia is not at all like she describes him. In our age of fast food, a guy can court you for 3 months and already demand almost divine worship. What can we say about 5 years? 5 years is an entire youth wasted. Jiang Wan, I know you won't be able to stand it and will return sooner or later to check my archive. I stood up, took my cup and left the office. Only this time I didn't go to the coffee shop. I walked down the stairs to the technical area, still holding my phone. I dialed the number to check something, but all I heard in response was, "The subscriber is unavailable, please call back later." Mei Weiwei and Zhou Qi also tried calling, but they heard the same indifferent voice on the answering machine over and over again. Lu Zia, since you want to play the missing person game, I'll drive you to the point where you'll come crawling back to beg for forgiveness. Don't think I'll forget everything so easily. She was sure she knew me too well that my attempts to get closer to the coworkers were just a sham, an attempt to irritate her. Do you want to torture me by ignoring me? Let's see who breaks first. Jiang Wan tossed the crossword puzzle aside and slammed her hand on her phone screen. Saturday, the hottest time in the tea house, is not day but night. I worked non-stop until 10:30 p.m. Finally, it was time to close the door. I pulled the curtains, grabbed a bag of milk tea, and headed home. I remembered Su Yuyu. This morning, she left 100 yuan on the table. So fragile, yet so independent, I thought. What a coincidence that we ended up connected. It was late, the door was locked. A strange rustling sound was heard in the silence. At this moment, Song Jiayi, who was watching everything from the side, was completely confused. I thought we'd just go our separate ways after the breakup, but I didn't expect to be so categorical. It seems Jiang Wan really did hurt my feelings. Why do I still feel a little sad? I gave her a chance to make things right, but she still didn't understand the value of that step. I walked into the house. The room was quiet, and I assumed Su Yuyu was already asleep. I used my phone's flashlight to light the way so as not to wake anyone. I noticed a strange shadow on the floor in the living room. The edge of the curtain was knocked down. Su Yuyu, I sensed something was wrong. I turned on the light and was stunned. Su Yuyu's face was burning. She was literally on fire. I touched her forehead. The temperature was critical. She opened her eyes with difficulty, her face flushed scarlet. She was breathing heavily, like a kitten with a cold, and could barely utter a word. Don't be afraid, I'll take you to the hospital. I carefully picked her up, wrapped her in a blanket, and rushed outside. The road was deserted, not a single taxi. In this area, a car is a rare find at night. I'm here, hold on, we'll be there soon, I said, feeling her heat through her clothes. I thought about going back for the car, but the hospital was close, and I decided it would be faster to run on foot. There was a commotion in the emergency room. I carried her to the doctor, barely catching my breath. The doctor and nurse rushed towards us. Quiet, don't shout, the patient is weak, they admonished me. I'm sorry, doctor, she just has a very high temperature, do something, I begged. They laid her on a bed in the examination room. Don't move, we're about to begin the examination, the doctor commanded. They took her temperature 39.8. The situation was serious. They prescribed IVs, and I spent the whole night by her bed watching her fall into a heavy sleep. By morning, when the pain had begun to subside, she came to, wrapped in a white blanket. She barely remembered how we had ended up there. Hello, how are you feeling? A young nurse entered with a bottle of medicine. After replacing the IV, she smiled. Your boyfriend couldn't take his eyes off you all night. Su Yuyu blushed, a color even brighter than her recent fever. He's not my boyfriend, she whispered. The nurse just smiled knowingly, remembering how I ran into the department in a panic. There was such panic I thought you were the groom saving the bride. You scared us all with your determination, she blurted out. Su Yuyu wanted to justify herself, to find the right words, but her tongue wouldn't obey. The nurse, catching my smile, hurried out so as not to embarrass us further. I walked into the room with bags of food. You haven't eaten all night. I bought you some wontons. If you want anything else, just let me know. I placed the bowl in front of her. Thank you, Lucia. I don't even have the strength to hold a spoon, she whispered. She looked so vulnerable that I couldn't help but sigh. Okay, I'll feed you. I carefully took out the wonton, blew on it so as not to burn it, and brought it to her lips. She stared at me wide-eyed, then, embarrassed, obediently opened her mouth. The taste was warm and homey. She ate wontons, stealing glances at me. I'd been looking after her since we met, and it was really sweet. Lucia, do you like me? She suddenly asked quietly, looking into my eyes with hope. She immediately became afraid of her question. What if I answer yes, what then? Silly girl, we've only known each other for a couple of days. What are you talking about? And don't forget, you owe me 280 wontons and 8 yuan for the medicine. Debts are sacred, I snapped, hiding my embarrassment behind my usual calculating manner. As expected, I was afraid she wouldn't repay the debt. My dry manner of speech angered her, but deep down she knew it was just a facade. She finished the wontons, trying to hide her hurt feelings, and soon fell asleep again. By 3 o'clock in the morning, the medicine had taken effect. When the nurse came to remove the needle, Su Yuyu noticed something on her gown, a twig she hadn't seen before. Baby, this isn't ours, your friend brought it, the nurse winked. I envy you, such a handsome and attentive guy, a rare thing these days. Hearing my explanation, Su Yuyu looked at the bedside table in surprise and lay down. While she was busy counting the money, she didn't mention that I was a warm baby. She'd been on her feet all day and then had been running around with me from hospital to hospital. It was only natural that she was exhausted. As soon as she opened her eyes, she immediately saw me. She rolled onto her side, leaning her hand on the bed, and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Are you finished yet? Does it feel better? I asked, observing her relaxed posture. Su Yuyu's eyes lit up, though she still looked weak. I couldn't help but say, hey, let me carry you. I squatted down and offered her my back. Su Yuyu looked at my broad back, clearly unsure what to do. Before the trip to the hospital, she'd seen me unconscious, and now I was perfectly fine. She hesitated, afraid to press too hard. Finally, she carefully placed her small hands on my shoulders. Wait, she whispered. I felt the warmth of her body against my back. I grabbed her legs and adjusted her position. Her cheeks, pressed against my back, flushed slightly, though my heartbeat remained steady. This moment involuntarily reminded me of that night when I photographed her on the kickboard. Returning home, I sat Su Yuya down on the sofa, covering her with a soft blanket. Looking at her sickly expression, I couldn't take my eyes off her. Many thoughts were racing through my head, and I blurted out, "You can sleep in my bed tonight." Su Yuyu's voice trembled slightly. She glanced at me furtively, hesitated, sweating, and shook her head. No, not now. Even if things were calm between us now, relationships don't develop that quickly. We can't just sleep together right away, can we? What if she doesn't like me at all? What's wrong? The bed upstairs is quite comfortable. I'll sleep on the floor. Of course, if you don't like that, forget I said anything. Hearing this, Su Yuyu realized she had misinterpreted my words. She hid her face as if burying herself in the sand. You simply misunderstood me. However, the meaning was almost the same. I squatted next to the sofa. We'd been close before, but now she froze for a moment, then lay trustingly on top of me. Lucia, thank you for today, she said as she walked down the stairs. Su Yuyu pursed her pink lips, her beautiful eyes looking at me with surprising seriousness. She lay down on the headboard, trying to relax. The bed was soft and she sat up, sighing softly, hugging herself. Listening to her even breathing, I involuntarily looked down. Moonlight streamed through the window, softly outlining her silhouette in the room. When she woke up, the room was empty. Bright sunlight flooded the living room, filling it with warmth and comfort. She held a carton of milk, her cherry-colored mouth slightly open. A sweet feeling spread through her heart, a smile played on her lips, and happiness shone in her eyes. The moon had risen. Then she noticed that the thermobox was still in the paper bag under the strap. She ate breakfast and, after waiting half an hour, took her medicine. Every time she picked up the phone out of boredom, she would exclaim, "Hey, who's there? Yuyu, have you finally decided to answer me? Where have you disappeared to?" A voice came from the speaker. No one was answering her calls or messages. Is the relationship over? Does he no longer love me? Has he found someone else? Hey, this is an unusual situation. Su Yuyu looked sad and sighed heavily. She couldn't help but close her eyes. Yi Zaiyu was her childhood friend, a girl with a difficult personality who always worried about her. Are you really living with a man? Zhen Yulong's scream and some strange noise came from the phone. Oh no, I'm going to be a man soon. I mean, you're a girl and he's a guy. That's dangerous. Is he abusing you? If anything happens, I'll come and sort it out. No, you misunderstood. Yi Zaiyu continued to panic. What are you going to do? Live with a stranger? What if he turns out to be dangerous? I don't even know what to say. What does he even do? My friend continued to babble. Suddenly, a transfer notification arrived from Yi Zaiyu. I can only transfer 10,000. My father has blocked the account. You better take care of yourself. I heard about your father. I didn't expect him to do this. He immediately set a wedding date with the son of the head of an international corporation. The price isn't cheap, but so what? Don't you know he's much older than me? He's probably some fat guy with a beer belly and a bald head. It's scary to even think about it. Someone on the other end of the line chuckled. Zaiyu, take this seriously. Yuyu, as your friend, I remind you, if nothing works out now, come back soon. The outside world is more complicated than it seems. Go back and apologize to Uncle Su. It might just be a misunderstanding. Su Yuyu's expression darkened. I won't go back. He always thinks he's right, never asking my opinion. Even on my 18th birthday, he forgot everything and then simply confronted me with the fact of meeting this boss Mao. Oh, how could he do that? You're alone on the streets. Protect yourself. Find a decent place to live. I'll ask the girls to send more money, Yi Zaiyu persisted. No, don't. You've probably already called everyone, Su Yuyu quickly interrupted her. Okay, if you need help, call me. Don't worry, I won't betray you, Yi Zaiyu promised. Thank you, friend, she replied. After hanging up, Su Yuyu opened a chat with me and, without thinking twice, sent a transfer of 8,000 yuan. Luzia, I have money. If you go out more often, I'll cover all the rent and food, she declared. She wanted to pay me back and then, on the advice of a friend, move out. After all, it was too dangerous for a girl to live here. Once the money issue was resolved, other thoughts arose. What to do now? Su Yuyu sat on the sofa, her legs tucked under her, wondering how to quickly remove that transfer message from our chat. She fiddled with the phone's interface. 2 minutes had already passed. How could she now explain this transfer in the context of sponsorship? Maybe the food Luzia cooks is just too delicious. Yes, that's exactly why, she reassured herself. I'll stay a little longer. It's too early to leave until I get tired of his cooking, she decided. At that moment, I was in the kitchen of the new milk tea cafe. My phone beeped and I pulled it out to see a transfer notification from Su Yuyu. I frowned slightly. Where did this guy get so much money? I hope she didn't steal it. Where did you get so much money? I asked. She's too simple-minded to get into debt or engage in dubious schemes. Hearing my cold tone, Su Yuyu replied with an offended expression. I borrowed it from a friend to pay back your rent. Hearing my explanation, Su Yuyu looked at the nightstand in surprise and lay down. She hadn't even thought about my words while she was counting the money. After being on her feet all day and then the hospital, it was only natural that she was exhausted. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw me. She rolled onto her side, leaning on her arm, and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Are you done yet? Does it feel better? I asked, observing her relaxed posture. Su Yuyu's eyes lit up, even though she looked weak. I couldn't resist and said, Hey, let me carry you. I squatted down, offering my back to her. Su Yuyu looked at me, unsure what to do. She'd seen me unconscious before, but now I was perfectly fine and she hesitated, afraid to press too hard. Finally, she gently placed her hands on my shoulders. Wait, she whispered. I felt the warmth of her body against my back. I picked her up and made her comfortable. Her cheeks, pressed against my back, flushed and my heartbeat remained steady. It reminded me of that night when I photographed her. Back home, I sat Su Yuyu down on the sofa and covered her with a blanket. Looking at her sickly expression, I couldn't take my eyes off her. My thoughts were racing and I blurted out, You can sleep in my bed tonight. Su Yuyu's voice trembled. She glanced at me furtively, hesitated, and shook her head. No, not now. Even if everything was calm between us now, relationships don't develop that quickly. What if she doesn't like me at all? What's wrong? The bed upstairs is quite comfortable. I'll sleep on the floor. Of course, if you don't like that, forget I said anything. Hearing this, Su Yuyu realized she had misinterpreted the words. She hid her face as if burying herself in the sand. You simply misunderstood me. I sat next to the sofa. We had been close before, but now she froze and then trustingly lay down on me. Lucia, thank you for today, she said as she walked down the stairs. Su Yuyu pursed her lips, her beautiful eyes looking at me with seriousness. She lay down on the headboard, trying to relax. The bed was soft and she sat up, sighing softly. Listening to her even breathing, I involuntarily looked down. The moonlight softly outlined her silhouette in the room. When she woke up, the room was empty. Bright sunlight flooded the living room, filling it with coziness. She held a carton of milk, her mouth slightly open. A sweet feeling spread through her heart, a smile played on her lips. The moon had risen. Then she noticed the thermos in the bag. She ate breakfast and after waiting half an hour, took her medicine. Every time she picked up the phone out of boredom, she would exclaim, "Hey, who's there?" "Yuyu, did you finally answer? Where did you disappear to?" A voice came from the speaker. No one answered. Is the relationship over? Has he found someone else? Hey, this is an unusual situation. Su Yuyu looked sad and sighed heavily. She closed her eyes. Yi Zaiyu, her childhood friend with a difficult personality, was always worried about her. Are you really living with a man? A friend's scream and a strange noise came from the phone. Oh no, you're a girl and he's a guy. Is he abusing you? If anything happens, I'll come and sort it out. No, you misunderstood. Yi Zaiyu continued to panic. What are you going to do? Living with a stranger, it's dangerous. I don't even know what to say. What does he do? My friend continued to babble. Suddenly, a transfer notification arrived from Yi Zaiyu. I can only transfer 10,000. My father has blocked the account. Take care of yourself. I heard about your father. He immediately arranged a wedding with the son of a corporate tycoon. The price is not low, but so what? Don't you know he's much older? He's probably some fat guy. It's scary to even think about it. Someone on the other end of the line chuckled. Zaiyu, take this seriously. Yuyu, as your friend, I remind you, if nothing works out now, come back. The outside world is more complicated. Go back and apologize to Uncle Su. Perhaps this is a misunderstanding. Su Yuyu's expression darkened. I won't go back. He never asks my opinion. Even on my 18th birthday, he made me face the fact that I'd meet Boss Mao. You're alone on the street. Protect yourself. Find a decent place to live. I'll send you more money, her friend persisted. No, don't. You've probably already called everyone, Su Yu interrupted her. Okay, if you need help, call me. Don't worry, I won't betray you, Yi Zaiyu promised. Thank you, friend, she replied. After hanging up, Su Yuyu opened a chat with me and sent a transfer of 8,000 yuan. Lucia, I have money. If you go out more often, I'll cover the expenses, she declared. She wanted to repay the debt and then move out, since it was risky for a girl to live here. Once the money issue was resolved, other thoughts arose. What to do now? Su Yuyu sat on the sofa, thinking about how to remove the transfer message from our chat. She fiddled with the phone's interface. 2 minutes had already passed. How could she explain this transfer? Maybe the food Lucia cooks is too delicious. Yes, that's exactly why, she decided. I'll stay a little longer. It's too early to leave until I get tired of his cooking, she thought. At this time, I was in the kitchen. The phone beeped and I saw a transfer from Su Yuyu. I frowned. Where did this guy get so much money? I hope she didn't steal it. Where did you get the money? I asked. She's too simple-minded to get involved in dubious schemes. Hearing my cold tone, Su Yuyu replied with an offended expression. I borrowed it from a friend to pay back your rent. At that moment, my arms felt numb from fatigue. Hearing Su Yuyu chatting with Xiao, I saw her suddenly retreat, as if coming to her senses. Her gaze fell on me. She watched me assess her condition and, embarrassed, lowered her head, constantly adjusting her clothes. Of course, I would have behaved the same way. Come tomorrow, Yuyu, we'll be colleagues. Xiao shook Su Yuyu's weak palms with delight. Looking at them, I felt a strong desire to protect this girl. I finally understood why guys are so drawn to tender and fragile girls. I like girls like that too, I thought. Thank you, Xiao, Su Yuyu replied with a smile. In my eyes, she wasn't just a celebrity, but a deadly tired person. If she could lie down right now, she would. Xiao smiled at her goodbye and they parted warmly. There were only the two of us left at the door. Shijiang had left after lunch, so we were alone. Xiao is an excellent student. She wasn't tired at all. See you tomorrow, she said before leaving. I said I'd come, Su Yuyu muttered. I underestimated you. You did great. I praised her and she laughed. Su Yuyu beamed at my praise. She tried to hide her joy, but her eyes betrayed it. She raised her nose. There's nothing I can't handle, she declared proudly. Yes, have some tea. I took out a fresh Uni Bobo milk tea from my bag and handed it to her. Su Yuyu was surprised to see the drink. Didn't Uni Bobo sell out this morning? She picked up the glass and found it warm. Did you just make this? She asked. I nodded. She took a sip and a genuine smile spread across her face. This is so delicious. Su Yuyu admitted it was the best tea she'd ever had. I fixed her hair, took a photo, and she smiled back. Get in the car, I commanded. Su Yuyu sighed heavily. Finally, it's time to go home and sleep. Come on, go and rest, I said, watching her figure disappear into the evening twilight. No one noticed that opposite, in the shadow of the building, stood Jiang Wan and Song Jiayi, who had just finished their classes. Seeing us smiling at each other, Jiang Wan couldn't help but smile as she clutched the bag of business cards in her hand. We quickly set off. The atmosphere was so cozy that I didn't feel like rushing anywhere. She had been having problems with her studies for the last 2 days and was constantly criticized by her supervisor, which put a lot of pressure on her. I wanted to support her, but I kept quiet. Sometimes just being there is enough, no extra words are needed. Returning home, I wanted to wake up Su Yuyu, but found that she had fallen asleep, leaning against the back of the seat. Her lips were slightly parted and the glass of unfinished tea remained in her hand. It was the first time I saw her sleeping. She was breathing evenly, her eyes closed, her long eyelashes casting a subtle shadow on her cheeks. She saw something in her dream, smiling slightly and licking her pink tongue. I once dreamed of the girl I liked falling asleep on my shoulder. I didn't expect the first one to fall asleep would be Su Yuyu, whom I've only known for a couple of days. After carefully parking the car, I turned to her and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. Su Yuyu was fast asleep. I decided not to make any noise and carried her into the house in my arms. I laid her on the bed, carefully unclenching her fingers, which had automatically grabbed hold of my shirt. I carefully covered her with a blanket, feeling tenderness, and went down to the first floor. A bath was out of the question. It was too late. I decided to deal with it all in the morning. I lay down on the floor and, tired from the events of the day, instantly fell asleep. Up on the bed, Su Yuyu opened her eyes and glanced at me sideways. She smiled faintly. She woke up because I accidentally touched her when I was moving her. I thought she was sleeping, but she was waiting for this moment to pretend that nothing had happened. She quietly hugged my hand, not wanting to let go. I felt good about her closeness. She knew I wasn't sleeping and was simply enjoying the moment. Yizai Oyu said that Su Yuyu had always been special to me, and tonight confirmed it. I realized that the world is much more complex than I thought, and even ordinary lemon tea can change everything. I've decided to stay here. I need to prove that I'm not a flower in a greenhouse, but a person capable of protecting my own heaven. Su Yuyu looked at me, and gradually her eyes began to close again from tenderness and peace. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of running water. I opened my eyes and realized that Su Yuyu was taking a shower on the second floor. I checked my phone. I still had 10 minutes and closed my eyes again. Soon the bathroom door opened and her head with a wet hair clip appeared from there. She saw that I was sleeping on the floor and froze, not knowing what to do next. She reached for her clothes, but in her haste, she dropped them on the floor. Water dripped from her hair onto the floor, and this quiet sound in the morning silence seemed to me the most beautiful start to the day. Su Yuyu saw me awake and in a panic threw the clothes she was holding in her hands at my face. While I was struggling to disentangle myself from the fabric, she rushed headlong into the bathroom and I only caught a glimpse of a slender leg. When I finally got rid of the clothes, I realized that I was holding her pink cardigan in my hands. What's going on? I stood up with difficulty, looking around the room. Her white things were scattered around, creating a sense of chaos. Su Yuyu quickly changed and rushed out of the bathroom. Seeing me holding her personal item, she recoiled, covering her face with her hands in embarrassment. It seemed that she was not yet fully awake. Her movements were sleepy and uncertain. "Pervert, give me back my cardigan." There was genuine shock in her voice. She clenched her small fists, looking with annoyance at the place where she had been sleeping just a few minutes ago. This moment was imprinted in her memory forever. "Luzia, you dared to rub your face against mine. You're a real pervert," she continued to be indignant. "Why are you yelling this morning? Are you at home?" I replied, barely suppressing my irritation. When a person has just gotten up, he does not have the strength for empty arguments, especially if he is accused of something he did not do. My voice was quiet, but in the morning silence of the room it carried weight. Su Yuyu instantly fell silent. Until I washed up and left the room, we didn't say a word to each other. Walking down the narrow street near the apartment, I glanced at Su Yuyu, who was walking in the distance. Remembering my tone this morning, I realized I'd gone too far. Life has forced her to endure a lot: parental pressure, being deceived in a strange city, and encounters with bullies. If I hadn't met her, I don't know how things would have turned out. I'm a man, and apologizing to a girl is not shameful, I thought, remembering my old habits. Su Yuyu, who had been lowering her head, suddenly stopped. She gritted her teeth and, looking at me, squeezed out, "I'm sorry." She suffered for a long time, trying to understand why she decided that it was her fault. In her world, everything was simple: good was good and evil was evil. If she was wrong, then she had to apologize. I was shocked to hear this. I couldn't believe she had said those words herself. "Lucia, I'm sorry I said something nasty to you this morning. Can you forgive me?" she asked sincerely. Su Yuyu looked at me with hope, but there was no pity in her eyes, only honesty. A woman passing by looked at her with pity, and I felt uncomfortable at the thought that someone could see ugliness or weakness in her. That boy who once bullied her was irresponsible, but I didn't want to be like that. I remembered my conflict with Jiang Wan. I was furious then because I was sure I was right. A few days after the argument, a message arrived: "If you don't apologize, don't write anymore." Back then, I thought a guy should have endless patience with girls because they are never wrong. Now I realized how ridiculous these thoughts were. "Forgive me too," I said. "I shouldn't have been so aggressive. Will you forgive me?" Looking at this sweet and attractive girl, I involuntarily reached out and gently touched her nose. Su Yuyu stood in front of me, a little disheveled but still as charming as a fresh lotus. "I forgive you too," she replied. We smiled at each other and walked out into the street together, heading towards our cafe. On the way, we decided to stop at an old noodle shop. I found a seat for Su Yuyu and smiled at the fat boss who was busy. 2 bowls of handmade noodles with fried meat and chili, I ordered. "See you guys, as always, the best clients," the boss smiled back, beaming. The boss's mother soon brought 2 hot bowls, generously filling Su Yu's portion. She complimented her. They didn't communicate much, but they seemed to understand each other without words. Su Yuyu noticed that there were twice as many side dishes in her bowl. The boss's mother was clearly showing her sympathy. The woman smiled gratefully at her, and Su Yuyu responded in kind. Someone from the outside might have thought that they were mother and daughter. They communicated so warmly. Smelling the aroma of fresh noodles, Su Yuyu grabbed her chopsticks and took a bite, her eyes shining. "It's delicious. The aroma and spiciness are just right," she praised, her mouth full. "Eat slowly, don't choke," I said. I looked at her helplessly, noticing a spot of sauce on her lips, and pointed my finger at them. Su Yuyu was happy, but the next second silence reigned. "Isn't that just food on your lips? Why are you looking at me like that?" flashed through her mind. The boss's mother, passing by with rice, noticed our couple. She looked at them with a smile and nodded meaningfully. Su Yuyu was confused, thinking, "Is this some kind of local custom?" If it had been anyone else, I would never have allowed this to happen. But Su Yuyu was the one who trusted me in my time of need, and I felt a special connection between us. She had always treated me with kindness, and I knew her gesture wasn't just a coincidence but a sign of deep trust. I remembered her checking her phone to see what such displays of affection meant. We both knew what it meant: the moment when lips touch lips, erasing the boundaries between us. Su Yuyu had the courage to take this step. She first carefully wiped the remaining oil from her lips with a napkin, preparing for this important moment. She slowly approached me, closing the distance, and at that moment everything around seemed to freeze, turning into the most amazing sight in my life.